Oh God, your computer is infected with the Lila virus. There's so many of them, they're taking over.
What was that?
Geez, Sleepy Joe, that's Freddy Fazbear. That sound means he's getting closer to the office.
Why can't we just leave this pizza place? Can't we just get some ice cream?
Because, Joe, that's the whole point of the game. You can't leave. That's what makes it scary.
Guys, can you keep it down? I'm trying to concentrate.
Geez, Matt Pat, you're using a lot of power. You wouldn't last 1 minute playing 2020 mode, which I totally beat on my first try, by the way.
Donald, you're so full of it, you probably died during the night one phone call. But Matt Pat, you should be checking cams more to make sure Foxy stays in Pirates Cove.
Mr. President, you might know about foreign policy, but Five Nights at Freddy's, it's kind of my territory.
If I had to guess which president was best at games, like Obama, Trump, or Biden, I wouldn't know if it would be Obama or Trump, because they're both competent gamers, but I don't know like which is quote unquote the best, and I'm kind of wondering what Matt Pat would think. For obvious reasons, it probably wouldn't be Biden.
Back, watch how the master does it.
Wow, you suck at this game.
Seriously.
Good thing you don't have a Let's Play channel.
Wait, I didn't know Matt Pat had a gameplay channel.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the Uncle Sam of the Internet that wants you to subscribe for memey videos that no one in their right mind would ask for. And oh boy, do we have a weird episode for you today. Lately, I've been gorging myself on the latest trend to strike the internet, US presidents playing video games. I don't know if this one's
Oh, the D&D one is so good.
your corner of the internet yet, but we now have ourselves videos of Obama, Trump, and Biden all getting on a Discord call together to put aside their political differences and just enjoy a round of Minecraft with the boys.
This is the universe I wish we lived in. I wish we lived in a universe where people were just like, you know what? Who cares about all that serious stuff? Let's get together and play a game. I feel like life is way too stressful and people are taking things way too seriously these days. I wish we could just relax and not take everything so personally.
Kinda. Obviously, these aren't real presidents checking their KD ratios. Instead, these are creators taking voice clips of previous presidents and feeding them into AI text-to-speech software and AI voice filters so they can then make the president say whatever they want him to say. So naturally, the internet did the only logical thing you would do with that sort of power. They turned them into gamers. They've played Mario Party, they've debated Smash tier lists, they've even argued about the FNAF timeline.
Obviously, Elizabeth Afton died before Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Why else would her bedroom be empty? She's dead, Joe.
Donald, that makes zero sense. Just because Elizabeth's bedroom is empty does not mean that she's dead.
This is kind of making me regret not inviting President Biden to our recent live FNAF talk back. Would have loved to hear his thoughts on the recent ID's fantasy video. Anyway, my recommended tab has been filled to the brim of my Abe Lincoln stovepipe hat with this sort of stuff. And personally, I am all about it. And after losing days of my life to binging these videos, naturally that dumb side of my theory brain started to kick into gear, and I couldn't help but wonder, what if the real presidents actually played these games? And more importantly, who would actually be the best? And I'm not just talking about the modern three that we see kicking around these videos, I'm talking about all the presidents, all.
So here's my question though. Why? Most of these presidents weren't around when video games were a thing. How could you really know which of the non-modern presidents would be the best gamer? I feel like sticking to the modern ones would make sense because they are actually around and alive while the technology is. You know what I mean?
All 45 of the past US executives in chief. And for those of you heading down to the comments right now to say that Biden is the 46th president, clearly you've forgotten about President Cleveland, who was elected to 2 non-consecutive terms, thereby making him both our 22nd and 24th president. Thus, Biden is only the 45th person to ever be US president. That is the first of many little history nuggets that we'll be exploring in this episode, dear theorists. So let's fire up our time machines, hop onto the
I want some nuggets now that I've seen those.
Discord with the boys and whip out those gamer headsets. It's time to inaugurate our first ever gamer-in-chief. So to start off with, how exactly are we gonna settle this one? Almost all of our presidents were born way before the invention of TVs and
See, this is what I was saying. Okay, at least he covers this. Okay, let's see what he has to say.
computers, let alone video games. In fact, only Barack Obama was born after the creation of the first video game. And this is what that one looked like. So not exactly fertile ground for our potential POTUS players. That being said, the presidents were pretty talented people. I mean, they ascended to the highest office in the land to become leader of the free world. They're obviously gonna be good at some stuff, right? But which of the traits are actually gonna help them become the kings of Kong, the sultans of Smash, the maestros of Mario? Well, let's just go through some of the skills that we know make good gamers, and then look through the historical records to see if any of our presidents can fit the mold of the most elitist of gamers. Fortunately for us, there's been a huge surge of research into what actually makes the best gamers.
Wait, really? That's exciting.
Finally, we're getting ourselves some scientific recognition, and one of the key things that studies have pointed to is raw intelligence. With so many players playing video games these days, there's a collective desire to find out the most elaborate and efficient strategies. That means that the amount of information you have to juggle at once is higher than ever before. I mean, feels like you kinda need a PhD in Pokemon battling just to be able to play versus battles online, let alone competing in real-life tournaments.
I gave my Screamtail enough investment to outspeed Choice Scarf Annihilate. Then I invested enough in its defense to allow it to survive Adamant Life Orb Max Attack King Gambit Ironhead, which is a very powerful, super effective attack.
Were those even words? Whatever they were, a study from the University of York did end up showing a strong correlation between players who were best at MOBA games like League of Legends and Dota 2 and how they performed on IQ tests, with the most skilled players having the highest IQ scores.
You know, that doesn't surprise me. I remember growing up and being told that video games are good for hand-eye coordination, but I always felt like there was a more logical component to it, because all it really is strategy. You know, you have a game, you have a world with defined rules, and you need to figure out how to win in ideally the most efficient way, otherwise you end up just kind of grinding and spending a ton of time and energy to get something that you could have done much more easily if you had a better strategy. So it always felt like, kind of like board games, you know, but just digital. Games are just all about strategy, even if it's like chess. It's all strategy, and the best strategies are gonna be intelligent ones, so yeah, that makes sense.
So if the top gamers are the ones with the highest IQs, which of our American presidents is ready to pull off those big-brained plays? Enter Keith
Oh god.
Simonton, a professor out of UC Davis who published a study back in 2006 in the Journal of Political Psychology where he attempted to calculate the IQ and other traits of all the presidents.
I'm glad that they're not just taking IQ into consideration, they're also thinking about other things, because IQ, at least based on what I know, is actually quite subjective. There are many different IQ tests out there, and there's many different kinds of IQ. Like, there's mental intelligence, then there's emotional intelligence, there's different kinds of intelligence, and from what I know, IQ is just kind of like a small fragment of what someone can actually do. And one of the smartest men in history even said himself that he doesn't take IQ super seriously, and he thinks that people who do take IQ seriously are actually quite dumb. And again, IQ is just one way to measure intelligence, and there's many kinds of intelligence, so it's not the complete picture.
From George Washington to George W. Bush. He did this by analyzing their speeches and other public records. It's not like he could go out and give Millard Fillmore an IQ test or anything. Some of the presidents that occupied his top spots probably aren't too surprising. You've got Thomas Jefferson, writer of the Declaration of Independence, John F. Kennedy, who was able to read 1,200 words per minute, which is 5 times the human average, and Franklin Pierce, a president that none of us remember, but who had himself a pretty solid memory considering he memorized his entire 3,300 word inaugural address by heart. To give you some context, a typical game theory script is about 3,500 words, so this guy has got Rosalina is Peach's daughter theory on lock. All that being said though, standing alone at the top of the IQ leaderboard with a skull-shattering IQ of 175, it's our 6th president, John Quincy Adams. 175 IQ is higher than one of the most notable smart men in history, Mr. Albert Einstein.
Wow.
So, you know, if you put JQA into the MOBA arena, he's gonna stomp on the competition. But obviously IQ isn't the be-all end-all here. The study even acknowledges this. While players with the
Yes. Oh, thank you for saying that. That's, I'm so happy.
highest IQ scores were the best at MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota, there wasn't a strong correlation between intellect and more action-based games like first-person shooters. While
Yes, exactly.
MOBAs rely on memory and strategic decisions, first-person shooters have a focus on speed and target accuracy.
Different kinds of intelligence.
And if our gamer president is gonna dominate the entire gaming scene, he's gonna need a little of both. And knowing that, one skill that is useful for a wide variety of games is reaction time. Your typical gamer has a reaction time somewhere between 300 and 500 milliseconds, but professional gamers, the top echelon of the gaming world, they have themselves some superhuman reflexes. They top out with reaction times under 200 milliseconds. That 1/10 of a second difference there is literally the blink of an eye. And while that might not not sound like much, that gap can end up being the difference between getting the clutch kill and getting demoted to Silver 5 in Overwatch again. Now, we've talked on this channel before about how age can affect your reaction time. Research has been done that shows your reaction times peak in your early to mid 20s and then starts to slowly drop off as you get older. Considering it can't even become
I love how it starts dropping off in your late 20s, like not even 30, not even 35. Kids, aging truly begins in your late 20s. How about that? That's kind of depressing. I could have went my whole life without knowing that, and I kind of would have preferred it, but hey, it is what it is.
President until you're 35, it means that all of our options are outside of their prime. Younger presidents like Teddy Roosevelt, JFK, and Bill Clinton might have a better shot, but none of them are going to be ideal. So do we have any other evidence of presidents demonstrating S-tier reaction times? I mean, I guess there was that one time that George W. Bush dodged not just one, but 2 shoes that were thrown at him by an Iraqi journalist during a speech in 2008. That was pretty impressive. Not only did he dodge attacks from the local Foot Locker, he then had the gamer instincts to identify their size.
If you want the facts, it's a size 10 shoe that he threw.
That being said, if you're looking for something
Wait, was that an accurate guess?
a little more legitimate than dodging some Air Jordans, then just call for Daddy. Bush's daddy, to be specific. George H.W. Bush was a pilot during World War II, flying a General Motors TBM Avenger during the war, a plane that could reach speeds of 276 miles per hour or 123 meters a second. In that blink of an eye, 100 milliseconds, he'd have traveled 40 feet, 12 meters. That's the length of a full-sized school bus, which could be fatal if he doesn't react fast enough. But he managed to fly over 58 combat missions, including earning the Distinguished Flying Cross after surviving a dangerous mission that left most of the other pilots that went out dead.
I have a feeling that people who are in the military, for example, or are pilots probably have an advantage because so much of that is what is in games. I mean, so many games are related to war or knowing how to use certain weapons and machinery. And yes, like it doesn't translate 100%, but there are some things like reaction time, for example, like MatPat is talking about, that I imagine would translate in real life and virtually. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
All in all, it means that once Pappy Bush gets a hold of that controller, there's no stopping him. But if I had to bet 20 bucks on which president would be the best when it came to reaction time, well, I'd bet on Mr. 20 himself, bloody Andrew Jackson. Because what's faster than a speeding plane? A speeding bullet. Jackson was never too afraid to line up against anyone who crossed him in a good old-fashioned duel. Now, these weren't the quick draws that you see in old Western movies, but instead tended to follow either British or French rules. Opponents would either stand opposite each other, guns pointed, and then fire when the signal was given, or they would stand back to back and take a set amount of paces before turning and firing, a la Hamilton.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, number 10 paces, fire!
Or more recently, John Wick 4. Regardless, both required you to be able to react quickly while also having incredible accuracy. Now, we don't know for sure which of these types of duels Jackson participated in, but some estimates suggest that he survived over 100, which means that his
I don't know, man. I feel like when people who are kind of celebrities have this kind of reputation about them, it's easy for things about their life to be more like legend or like, you know, sensationalized versions of what actually happened. So I'm a little skeptical of that number, but interesting idea.
reaction time had to be pretty spot on. Now, of course, video games aren't just about hitting the buttons the quickest. Daphne Vivelier, a professor of brain and cognitive sciences at the University of Rochester, showed that gamers perform significantly better on tests of attention, speed, accuracy, vision, and most importantly of all, multitasking.
So is this Rochester in New York? If so, that's cool. My home state.
When compared to their non-gamer peers. Games nowadays are demanding more and more of our attentional resources and requiring us to split it amongst various different tasks.
As someone that's been playing video games since the 2000s, I've got to say video games have become a lot more complicated. And that makes sense. I mean, with the rise of technology, social media, we're getting used to multitasking more and more. And it's kind of intimidating, though, how some games like Apex, for example, are so complicated. I tried to play Valorant, and I literally, I had a hard time during the training portion of the game because there's so many different weapons, so many like hotkeys that you could use. I was like, bruh, I am not used to games being this complicated, but it makes so much sense. And I imagine games are only going to get more complicated. But since you don't need IQ in every game, like MatPat said, to play the game well, maybe we as a society are becoming smart in other ways that are not IQ related, which is why games can become more complicated, but people can still enjoy them despite the fact that we are multitasking more. I think it's safe to say that given what's happening in schools with AI and what's happening with student retention given technology, kids are struggling more in school, at least based on what I've heard, more than ever. And it would make sense that they're still able to enjoy games if the games aren't challenging them in an IQ kind of way, but in other areas of intelligence instead. That would make a lot of sense.
And objectives. Long gone are the Atari days where you just had a little triangle shooting asteroids. Whether it's analyzing your opponent's moves in Smash or juggling 50 different animatronic attack patterns in Custom Night, a true gamer needs to be able to manage multiple things at once in order to win. So who among our presidential players has demonstrated some high-level multitasking abilities? Well, there's always President Lyndon Johnson, who used to have meetings while sitting on the toilet with the door open in front of his staff. I guess that's a type of multitasking.
That's really strange. Why?
All of these men are just the worst, aren't they? There are also other more normal examples.
I was gonna say, MatPat was saying earlier that these people became president. Surely they must be good at some things. And I'm just thinking to myself, a lot of the best entrepreneurs are psychopaths. I guess you could call that a skill, but I actually think that some of the most successful people might have something about them that is abnormal and not always good, but in a competitive environment gives them an advantage. But yeah, I don't think that just because someone has become president means that their skills are good. Or even apply to gaming. But again, this is a theory video. He's trying to piece together some kind of narrative, and I understand that you gotta work with something, so yeah.
Like John F. Kennedy, who would draw little sailboats during intense meetings, which is a little concerning to think about. Like, was he doodling catamarans during the Cuban Missile Crisis? Although I guess he got the job done, so we can't really fault him on that one. But it's one thing to be able to do
I find that kind of adorable, but it also sounds like anxiety.
2 tasks that involve different areas of the brain. It's another to be able to do 2 tasks that involve
Oof, my right side is so much more buff than my left. Logical reasoning, I can do that, but language and math, oof. I've started learning a little bit of Japanese, and it's actually been easier than I expected, but I really struggle with math.
Of the same part of the brain, which is exactly what Bill Clinton would do. He would have himself some serious political conversations with advisors while also solving the New York Times crossword puzzle. It's pretty hard to do 2 things that both require language processing. The wires are gonna get easily crossed, which thereby makes what Billy C did that much more impressive. In a video game, Clinton would be able to take in everything that's going on, but still have the brain power to start trash talking the competition. And speaking of, I think we can all agree, even if science doesn't reflect it, trash talk, an essential part of that gamer experience.
And Reggie, for being the president of Nintendo, you suck at Smash Bros.
I remember this moment.
Spend 16 hours a day running a company. You spend 16 hours a day playing Smash. So
if presidents of Nintendo need to trash talk to be the best, well then presidents of America need to do the same. And let's be honest with ourselves, most presidential campaigns at this point are just chances for them to trash talk each other.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military's changed.
I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did.
I served with Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
And when it comes to the absolute king of trash talk, there's no one else to choose but William Henry Harrison. During the election of 1840, Harrison and his VP pick John Tyler were running to unseat President Martin Van Buren. Harrison's campaign released a 12-verse diss track that let me just play.
Yeah, play that, please. I want to hear this. What?
Yeah, a little clip of it.
And Tyler too, and with them we'll beat little Van.
What?
Van is our used-up man, and with them we'll beat little Van.
Wait, what? What? It's too beautiful to hurt. You know what I mean? Could you imagine if instead of someone coming up with a rap where they roasted you, they just came out with this elegant ballad that sounded pretty, I don't know, that wouldn't make it sting as much for me.
Yeah, this guy was dropping bars way before Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's no surprise with sick beats like that, they did end up beating little Van Buren, and then Harrison died a month into office after catching pneumonia. But hey, Now at least he can be remembered for more than just shortest tenure in office. Outside of trash talk, there's also some other oddball skills here. Herbert Hoover, today mostly known for his botched response to the Great Depression and the Hoover Dam, was the original Minecraft streamer. I mean, prior to being president, he got rich as a mining scout and engineer. Just had a sixth sense for finding gold. This man would have had a full enchanted gold armor set before you put down your first crafting table. And the last thing that I gotta call out here is that no matter how good you are as a gamer, eventually you're gonna fail. But what's important is having the determination to get back up. And there's one president I think demonstrates this better than anyone.
Teddy?
Because he literally got back up after being shot. On October 14th, 1912, while campaigning to become president, Teddy Roosevelt was shot while giving a speech. The bullet went through his glasses case, his 50-page speech, and then lodged itself in his chest. Not only did he survive, he was like, yeah, I suppose I'm not coughing up blood or anything, so I'm probably okay. And he went on to finish the dang speech. If that's not gamer
That's a badass right there.
determination, I don't know what is. The problem is, all these fun facts and pieces of scientific research are interesting, but I still feel no closer to figuring out the answer. There isn't really a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to finding our best gamer president. There are some skills that may be suited to one game or another, but no one's truly the best at all of them. So maybe I've been looking at the question all wrong. Maybe the gamer president isn't the best in a single category, but is consistently good across all of the board, with the most well-rounded stats across all the things that we just talked about. And during my research, there was one guy that absolutely fit the bill. The gamer energy runs deep with this one. It runs so deep that his great-grandson is actually the inventor of Magic the Gathering, the
Whoa.
OG trading card game. The undisputed ultimate gamer president would have to be, drumroll please, President Garfield. No, not that one. James Garfield, the 20th president of the United States. But yeah, even his name is a meme. Fun fact, by the way, the lasagna-loving feline came afterwards, actually named after the creator's grandfather, who himself was named after President Garfield. Now, not only is this man rocking out the gamer beard, James Garfield was smart, like really smart, boasting around 150 IQ, ranking him in the top 10 of presidents, and also puts him on par with inventor Thomas Edison. Sure, it's not Einstein levels, but that's still pretty dang solid. Plus, he proved his nerdiness beyond just raw IQ. During Garfield's 9 terms in Congress, he developed a
Wow, 9 terms. I guess that was before the presidential limit on terms, huh?
proof for the Pythagorean theorem using trapezoids. This wasn't just a fun little back-of-the-napkin calculation either. He had it published in the New England Journal of Education, and he did it while shooting the breeze with his colleagues in the congressional cafeteria. Intelligence, my name is Garfield. He was also quadrilingual, able to speak
Whoa, that's amazing. I want to be multilingual someday.
English, German, Greek, and Latin. And it gets even cooler than that. He was ambidextrous, meaning that he was good at
that's so cool.
using both his right and his left hands. To show off his bihandular prowess, he would ask his guests to give him a question that he'd then write his answer to in Latin with one hand and in Greek with the other hand at the same time.
That's amazing, bruh.
If that isn't an incredible show of both hand-eye coordination and multitasking, I don't know what is.
It really is.
His reaction times also weren't something to be overlooked. He, like many of our presidents, served in the military during part of his life, and actually fought in a few high-powered battles during the American Civil War. While there doesn't seem to be any record of his actual skills with a gun, the fact that he not only helped win the Battle of Shiloh, the bloodiest of the war, but also walked away completely uninjured shows that he must have had some level of skill when it came to firing his own weapon and avoiding others. Or, you know, maybe he just hid in the corner and camped the whole time, which again, that's a very valid gamer skill that works for a lot of people. But to top it all off, there are 2 things about Garfield that I'm sure a lot of you hashtag gamers out there can relate to. Well, he was certainly born before the invention of the video game. He was not unfamiliar with late night gaming sessions. Turns out he was an avid chess player. And
Didn't I mention chess before and how board games are just like the physical version of video games? This is what I mean.
It was said that the president, quote, enjoyed the game to the utmost, but had to deny himself even this pleasure when it repeatedly carried him into late hours of the night. If Doritos and Mountain Dew had been invented for this guy, I'm sure he would have been chowing down on those too like a true gamer. Secondly, he proved himself to have an ability to win in unconventional ways. Sometimes he wasn't even trying to. Case in point, the way he actually became president. During the election of 1880, Garfield, then a lowly congressman cranking out mathematical proofs, went to the Republican National Convention to give a speech in support of fellow Ohioan and Secretary of State John Sherman. However, the party couldn't find a majority consensus between Sherman, former President Ulysses S. Grant, and Senator James Blaine of Maine. The party did 35 rounds of voting before they decided on a compromise.
Wow.
Garfield, who wasn't even running. Garfield just straight up Among Us'd his way into the White House.
Wait, were they just like, all right, these three guys are mediocre, but we all love Teddy, so let's just elect him. Let's just choose him. Is that what happened?
Kinda sus if you ask me, but hey, in the world of gaming, a win is a win. So there you have it, friendos. President James Garfield. You, sir, have been formally recognized and placed in the most powerful seat in all of the internet. But before we send you in to destroy Biden, Trump, and Obama in their next match at Tetris, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly...
Wait, isn't that his left hand? Wait, isn't that his left hand?
I swear that I will faithfully execute the office of gamer and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of internet memes. Wait, Garfield doesn't have himself an AI voice synthesis? Get on that, boys! This man demands your respect. All hail to the chief, the Master Chief. But hey!
Matt Pat, why didn't I get a mention?
Because you're not a winner, Joe.
Then why wasn't I mentioned? I'm also a winner.
Shut up, Richard. People only know who you are because of Futurama.
You want to go, Barack? I'll beat you in anything. Bully, sounds like we've got a good old-fashioned game of digital fisticuffs.
And I have just the game for you guys to duke it out in. The sponsor for today's episode.
So, question, will we ever know if either Obama, Trump, or Biden is the best gamer president? Like, can we have a modern US president gamer video? Because that's what I want to know. I don't know how their IQs stand up and their other forms of intelligence, but I feel like Obama is a bit more in touch with internet culture. I've seen him respond to memes about himself before. He may have an advantage with technology and video games in general, but that would be my guess just based on seeing this whole video, and I feel like that kind of clarified the answer for me. Before I was like, it could be Trump or it could be Obama, I'm not sure, but actually I think Obama might have an unfair advantage there.
Episode Warpath. Now, we've talked a lot about random facts of history, but it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to actually experience it. And with Warpath, you can do exactly that. Take part in battles throughout history, all revived with new, modern, real-time strategy gameplay that feels like it's catered directly to you, the gamer, or honestly to me as a history buff. If you don't know, my son Ali is actually a bit of a vehicle enthusiast. He loves
Oh, that's right, Matt Pat has a son! Bruh, oh man, that's weird. Did you guys hear that PewDiePie has a baby on the way? Man, it's so weird to see the creators that I grew up with like getting older and starting families and stuff. I'm happy for them, but I'm also just like, wow, it feels like the end of an era, you know?
going to car shows and seeing how all the engines work. So inevitably, I had to learn a lot about different kinds of planes, jeeps, tanks, and now I get to actually put that knowledge to good use. With 9 types of units and over 200 types of military equipment, there are so many ways to approach each situation, and I, for one, am ready for it.
Ha, nerd.
Joke's on you there, Nixon, because I won't be the only one benefiting from my vast knowledge of World War II planes. Warpath offers a really fun and cohesive multiplayer mode, so I can strategize with others from around the world in real time, rather than
If I wasn't afraid of heights, I feel like I would be a pilot. But I am scared of heights, so I could not be a pilot.
than trying to take on an entire army by myself.
Don't worry, MatPat. With my confidence in our armed forces, with your unbounded determination, we will gain the inevitable triumph.
And if you guys really want to see who's the best, Warpath is holding an online event called Be a Top Commander to celebrate the PC release of the game.
I'm literally the commander of that war. This will be a cakewalk.
You want to bet, Hotshot?
Hey guys, let's keep it to the game battlefield, alright? If you go to the link in the description and download the game for free on iOS and
This looks like a game my dad would enjoy. He really loves battle strategy games.
Android or PC, you not only get to take part in this massive competition, you can also win yourself in-game rewards and physical cash. Cash money in your pocket. Put those Benjamins in your
Cash money.
bank. Benjamin, who was not a president, by the way. And that's not just me talking to these AI presidents, but also to all of you watching this video at home. All of you have a chance to win these awesome prizes and show the world that it's not just about brute force, but also brute smarts. So download the game using the link in the description.
And I feel like that's really what kind of intelligence is at the end of the day. Like being strong of mind, but also of body. Intelligence is more than just brain power, more than just calculations. Emotional intelligence, deciding what action to take, especially in a short window of time. All these things are really what makes up intelligence. And I'm so glad that we've gotten to a point in our society where like the definition of intelligence is widening, because before I felt like it was so kind of narrow that it was very exclusive. And I feel like we were kind of pushing out a lot of people who did have intelligence to offer, but just weren't being recognized for it. And so we were just like, you're stupid, pretty much.
And start strategizing and climb those rankings to be in for a chance to win that huge cash prize. Let's show everyone what a theorist can really do.
I'll see you on the battlefield, soldier.
But in the meantime, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
I love how at the end of the game theory video, it said at the bottom, ruining your childhood since 2011. Meanwhile, for me, it's like, no, you didn't ruin my childhood, MatPat. You made it what it is. You were part of my childhood. That's crazy. What do you think about the president that MatPat chose? And also, if you could name one of the modern presidents as the best gamer, which one would you choose? By the way, I'm experimenting with reacting to new creators, so if there's one I haven't covered yet that you would like me to review, please leave it in the comments below and I'll be sure to check it out. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.